Hello friends and welcome to Share Them Smiles. I'm Alyssa and today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. Now I was seeing these videos all around last year and they've been popping up again this year, and because I'm back to making videos I decided I am going to finally take part in them and I'm so excited. I actually got these questions off of the Emma Books videos earlier today. And she doesn't really count them because she lost track at some point, and so I don't know the exact number, but I ended up with 14 questions, and so I have them written down here so that I have them to refer to, and without further ado, let's just jump right into it. The first question is the best book you've read this year, and so far I had like 3 books, and I'll mention them because they're all going to come up, that I was going between, but I ended up deciding on Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. Now, as you can tell, this is not Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda. This is the movie that was made based off of it called Love, Simon, and it's still in the wrapper. That's because I lent my copy of Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda out to Jocelyn, who is reading it, and then we're going to watch this together when she's done, which I believe she was going to try to finish it today, so hopefully we get to watch this movie soon. But I just really fell in love with this book. I thought that Simon was adorable. I thought that his story was very real and could be very relatable to people, and it was just a really overall, it by the end of it, it left me with these feel good vibes that I loved. And so far this year, that's probably been my favorite book I've read so far. The second question is the best sequel you've read this year. Now, I haven't read very many sequels. I've actually only read 2, and they're in the same series, and that would be the Mortal Instruments series. Last year, I bought all of them, so I am going to be finishing them so that I get my money's worth. After I finish them, I'm going to kind of decide if they're worth, if I want to continue on after that. But of the 2 that I've read this year, coming back on track, sorry, City of Fallen Angels by Cassandra Clare is probably my favorite of the sequels. It's the 4th book. I also read the 3rd one, but this one stood out to me as my favorite, and it actually might be my favorite in the series so far. I don't think that that's super common, but I think that there's a couple reasons for that. First off being that the story within this one I found more interesting than some of the ones in the past, and also it focused on different characters, and they were the characters that I kind of care about more. There was a little bit less of Clary and a little bit more of Simon, and I just think Simon is a really interesting character, and he's probably my favorite character in these books, so it was nice to see him play a little bit of a bigger role in it. But yeah, so this is my favorite sequel that I've read this year. Question number 3 is a new release you haven't read yet, but you're excited for. And for this, I decided to go with Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. This book is about a girl who remembers a time when there was magic in her land, but there was a horrible king who decided he wanted to get rid of all magic, and so he had everyone who had magical powers killed, and that included her mother. And so she wants to bring back magic to this world, but it's still not safe, and so it's kind of following her, and I just thought it was such an interesting premise, and this book has gotten such good high praise across the board, and so I'm really excited to jump into this one. The 4th question is the most anticipated sequel for the rest of the year. Now, I actually don't know what other books are coming out the rest of the year, and I don't really have any huge sequels that I'm looking forward to. However, there is a sequel that already came out that I still haven't read, so I'm going to talk about that one, and that is Legendary by Stephanie Garber. Now, Caraval by Stephanie Garber was actually one of my favorite books of all time, I think, ever, but was definitely one of my favorite books that I read last year, and this is the sequel to that. And in that one, we followed one of the sisters, I believe it was Scarlet, and in this one, we followed the other sister, Tella, and Tella is going back to the games because of a deal that she had made that we find out about kind of towards the end of the other book, Caraval. But I'm super excited to jump into this. I thought it was so magical and so much fun. And so this world is one that I cannot wait to get back to. And so that is why Legendary is the sequel that I'm most anticipating, even though it's out, I guess. The fifth question is the biggest disappointment you've read this year, and for that I'm going to go with The Crane Wife by Patrick Ness. Now, I knew nothing about this book going into it, so how could it really be disappointing? Well, that's because the author is Patrick Ness, and I've only read one other book by him, so I don't know how fair that is, but when I read A Monster Calls, it was so deeply moving, and I was kind of hoping, maybe not for the exact same thing, but for something out of this, because I thought that he was such a strong writer. However, this book just really did nothing for me. I didn't really care about the characters. The story really didn't move me in any kind of way, and it was actually kind of predictable and kind of slow moving, but just didn't touch me in any kind of way, didn't make me feel much of anything. So it was definitely a disappointment in that way. Number 6 is The Biggest Surprise, a book you didn't expect to love. And this one might surprise some people, but I'm going to go with Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. Now, John Green is an author that I have always enjoyed. Don't get me wrong, I've read most of his books by this point. I know there's at least one I haven't read. There might be a second one. But after a while, the last couple that I read just really didn't do anything for me, and he started to feel a little formulaic, like I could predict where everything was going to go, and so they just weren't doing anything for me. However, Turtles All the Way Down was definitely a delightful surprise. The plot line, what you find out beforehand, like there's a billionaire, he's missing, there's a reward, and there's our main character, and she and her best friend may be going after that reward, but she also has an anxiety disorder. I believe that I've heard that it's OCD, but I don't remember if that's actually addressed within this book. But yeah, so even that didn't sound super exciting, but then when I read it, it was so good. The book was really well written. The story was so good. Like, what I just said here doesn't do it justice. Like, I think it's a book that you have to read to really get what it's really about. But I was so surprised. It was so well written. I found that the characters were really interesting. The main character especially was super well written, and I think that's because John Green wrote about something very personal to him. He has the anxiety disorder that he gave the main character, and so he's able to depict it very accurately, and I really appreciated that part of it, and I enjoyed the story as a whole, and it actually became one of my favorite books that I've read this year, and was one of the ones that I was considering, along with Simon, to make my number one. But yeah, so this one was really good, surprisingly so. Question number 7 is a favorite new or new to you author, and for this I'm going with Anna Marie McLemore. The first and actually only book I've read by her this year is When the Moon Was Ours, and this book was the other one that I also almost made my best book of the year so far. It was super magical, and I was super wrapped up in the story of it all, from beginning to end. The characters were really well written, and I fell in love with all of them, and the imagery was just so beautiful. I thought it was written so beautifully, that I couldn't wait to get my hands on any more of her books, and so that's why I ended up buying Wild Beauty. Now, I haven't read it yet, but I do plan on reading it, hopefully sooner rather than later, and I know that The Weight of Feathers is another book by this author. I actually haven't been able to find it yet. I'm going to probably have to order it online or something, but she just has this way with words that I've fallen in love with right away, and so that's why Anna Marie McLemore is my favorite at least new to me, author. Question number 8 is a new fictional crush, and I don't have one, so there's that. Question number 9 is your new favorite fictional character. And while there's a few that I could go with, I'm definitely going to go with Simon from Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda. Like I said before, I just thought he was so cute. I definitely felt like he was a very real character. I could see people that I knew within him, and I was rooting for him the whole time and just fell in love with him. So he's definitely my new favorite fictional character. Number 10 is a book that made you cry. And while many of these books made me feel something, none of them actually made me cry. So there's that. Question 11 is a book that made you happy. For this one, I'm going to go with Simon again, and also When the Moon Was Ours. Both of these books, you know, like every book, your characters are going to go through stuff. They're going to meet some challenges, and then they're going to hopefully rise above them. And in both of these books, I thought that they handled them so well, and the highs in the books, the moments when they're happy, I was so happy with them. I was definitely felt like I was in there with them, which I think is, I guess, the definition of happy. And both of them also, when they ended, I was so happy to see where it left different characters, and just with the way everything happened from beginning to end in both of these books, and they made me very happy. Question number 12 is a favorite review, written, or booktube video that you've posted. So I've actually been without internet for a while, and because of that I haven't written any reviews on Goodreads or really put out much in terms of videos at all, let alone pertaining to books. I think I have 3, and of those 3, I don't really have a favorite yet. I'm going to try to post the links to those down below, so if you're interested to check them out, you can, but I don't really have a favorite per se. Question number 13 is the most beautiful book you bought and or received this year. And for that, I'm going to go with, if you mean physically, the cover is beautiful, I have to go with The Wicked Deep. This is the one book that I reviewed this year, and in it I talked about how I bought it without knowing anything about it, just because of how beautiful I thought this cover was. Now I know that it might be an acquired taste, but I just thought the deep blue is so gorgeous with the shining silver all over. And like I also showed in that video, if you take the cover off a little bit, you still get this beautiful moon and stars, and I just think it is so gorgeous. I love the cover of this book so much. And if you mean beautiful book in terms of what's inside of it, then for that I'm going to have to go with When the Moon Was Ours by Anna Marie McLemore. I'm telling you, it is so beautiful, and that's why I've fallen in love with the book and also the author. And the last question I have, number 14, is books that you need to finish before the end of the year. So the first one I'm going to say is Wild Beauty by Anna Marie McLemore. I think I've talked enough about how gorgeous I thought her writing was after one book and how I need more, and hopefully this will satisfy that reading hunger that I have. The next book on my list of books I need to finish by the end of the year is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This book comes up a lot on BookTube and book reviews, especially I've noticed when people are talking about Caraval. And one of the things I noticed is some people who have read this book hate Caraval. But I have not seen anyone who's read Caraval who does not also like this book. It's about a circus that shows up out of nowhere and then is open only at the night time, and there are these 2 magicians that are competing in it, and there's also a love story, and that's really all I know. But I know that this comes up a lot in conversation about Caraval, as if you like this one, you'll like this one, and so I'm super excited to jump into that one at some point by the end of this year. The third book that I need to read by the end of this year is The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. Now, this book was very timely and deals with issues that are very familiar to the world around us, unfortunately, right now. It's very prevalent last year when it came out because of things like the Black Lives Matter movement. And unfortunately, recently there was another event that I do not personally know anyone involved in, but a friend of mine knew someone who did, and it just kind of made me think of this and how important things like this are, and I need to finish this book by the end of the year. I don't know why I've been putting it off. And the last book that I need to read by the end of the year is Night Film by Marisha Pessl. Now, this book is one that I saw reviews for, and they talked about what was going to happen in it, and I was like, I need to get my hands on this book. This book sounds right up my alley, and every time I'm ready to pick up another book, I kind of come to it, and then I'm like, maybe not. Maybe I'll read something else before, but it's always one that's in the running, and because of that, I think I need to just get it out of the way and finish it. But if you watched my TBR for July, you'll know that that's exactly my plan. This is on that one, and I'm finally going to finish it. I'm not going to really talk too much about what it's about, because I kind of butchered that in my TBR, but this is one that I will definitely be finishing by the end of the year. So now I was going to talk about something else, but this video has gone a little too long, so instead I'm going to post this as is. I hope you enjoyed my take on the mid-year book Freakout Tag. Is there anything in there that you've read? Anything that you think I should read based on what you've seen? Do you have any ideas, thoughts about any of these books that you'd like to let me know about? Feel free to comment all of that stuff down below. If you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, and if you're curious about future videos I'll be putting out, feel free to hit the subscribe button. Thank you all so much for watching. I love you all, and as always, don't forget to share them smiles. Ciao for now, friends.